The flame flickered once, as if it already knew how the night would end. A single candle burned at the center of the command table, its weak light trembling over maps no one would follow anymore. Major Ritter sat in silence, watching the wax melt, the tick of his wristwatch louder than the war outside. Around him, 12 men waited for orders that would never come. The bunker had become a grave that hadn't yet decided whose names to carve. Outside, the forest pressed closer each night, swallowing the last road. Radios had gone dead 2 days ago. Headquarters had not answered in 3. They had stopped hoping at 5. Somewhere beyond the trees, the front had collapsed. It didn't matter anymore which direction the enemy came from. The men inside were already ghosts, rehearsing their last watch. The candle hissed in the draft. Captain Helm sat opposite Ritter, carving the end of a pencil he would never use again. Sergeant Clemens leaned on the wall, his face half in shadow, eyes locked on the flame like it could still promise something. Private Neumann, the youngest, stood near the door, one hand always on the holster, though there was nothing left to defend. The air smelled of oil, damp concrete, and the kind of silence that hurts your ears. 3 days ago, a courier had arrived on foot, barely alive, boots torn, eyes wild. He had said only one thing before collapsing: "High command is gone." No one knew if he meant destroyed, scattered, or surrendered. They buried him behind the bunker that night, without ceremony. After that, the men began lighting a candle every evening. No one ordered it. No one questioned it. It simply became what they did, the last act of men pretending the chain of command still existed. The candle was their clock now. As long as it burned, the war still had witnesses. Tonight was the 4th night, and they all felt it would be the last. "If they don't come tonight, they never will," Helm muttered. Ritter didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The maps on the table were stained with coffee and dust, arrows pointing to divisions that no longer existed. In the far corner, the field telephone sat like a relic of another world. No sound, no static, only the soft drip of melting wax. Then 3 knocks. Sharp, hollow. They froze. Every man turned to the steel door. No one spoke. A minute passed. The sound didn't come again. "Wind," Helm said quickly, too quickly, but they all knew it wasn't the wind. The bunker was too deep. Ritter looked toward the door, then back at his watch. "Check it," he said quietly. Clemens moved down the corridor, his boots echoing in the long, narrow passage. He opened the inner hatch. Nothing. Only the hum of the generator and the faint smell of frost creeping in from the vents. When he returned, he said only one word: "Empty." Ritter nodded. "Then we stay on routine." Routine. What a strange word in a place where time had stopped meaning anything. Outside, the snow was falling over corpses of trees, erasing the past inch by inch. Inside, the men held on to gestures, writing in ledgers, cleaning weapons that would never fire, straightening uniforms no one would ever see again. Newman poured coffee, black, bitter, made from the last grounds. He placed a cup before Ritter and another before Helm. "Sir," he asked, voice too soft, "is it true what the boy said? That command's gone?" Ritter looked up, met his eyes. "There's no one left to give orders, Private. We are the orders now." The young soldier nodded, but his hands trembled. The candle wavered again, as if hearing them. Somewhere in the hall, a bulb popped and went dark. The sound made them all flinch. For the first time, Helm spoke without sarcasm. "What if no one remembers this place, Major? What if we're just erased?" Ritter smiled faintly. "Then we're free." It was the closest thing to mercy any of them had heard in weeks. Silence settled again, heavy and absolute, the ticking watch, the slow drip of wax, the pulse of men waiting for an ending that wouldn't announce itself. Then, from the far wall, a sudden sharp sound, a click, metallic and low, the old field telephone. They all froze. It hadn't made a noise in days. One red light blinked once, then again. Ritter stood. "Line 1, he said quietly, though no one had moved. Helm swallowed. Who could it be? The major reached for the receiver, hand steady. Only one way to know. He lifted it, static. Then, beneath it, a voice, faint, wet, whispering through broken signal, "Hold the light." And the line went dead. The candle's flame bent sharply as if something had just exhaled beside it. No one spoke. They all just stared at the door. Somewhere in the forest, footsteps began to sound, steady, synchronized, too far to count, but too close to ignore. No one slept that night. The voice from the telephone hadn't returned, but its echo settled like dust over every surface. "Hold the light." 3 words, barely audible, yet everyone heard them the same, as if the bunker itself had spoken. At 0400 hours, Sergeant Clemens suggested rotating watches, but no one agreed. No one left the main chamber. Even sleep felt dangerous now. Captain Helm muttered about hallucinations, oxygen levels, exhaustion, but the others just listened to the candle. It hissed, popped, sputtered, but did not die. Major Ritter began writing, pages in pencil, on the backs of old reports and ration manifests. Helm watched him, half contemptuous. "You writing a novel, Major?" Ritter didn't answer. He was copying every name, every detail he could remember about the men in the room and the units they once served. Not because he thought someone would read it, but because some part of him believed that memory alone could resist erasure. By morning, the bunker had grown colder. The boiler room had finally given out. Condensation dripped from the ceiling. Breath fogged in front of their mouths. Newman's hands were blue. He had given his gloves to Corporal Dietz 2 days ago when Dietz's frostbitten fingers turned black. Dietz now lay in the infirmary, unconscious, wrapped in blankets that did nothing. His breathing was shallow, like a bird caught between 2 windows. They tried the radio again. Helm turned the dials with ritualistic care, his fingers stiff, static. Then a voice. Russian? No, too garbled. Could have been Polish, Czech, even German. Then silence again. They looked to Ritter. He just shook his head. "If they wanted us alive," he said, "they'd have come already." New character, Lieutenant Pavel Yanek, Czech translator, attached to HQ 3 weeks before the collapse. Quiet, observant. He rarely spoke unless addressed, but today he did. The phrase on the phone, "Hold the light," in some dialects it means remain awake. In others, it's religious, like guard the spirit. Neumann, shaking slightly, whispered, "Maybe it wasn't a command. Maybe it was a warning." The idea stuck. It clung to the walls. At 1500, Clemens returned from the upper shaft. "Fresh tracks," he said. "Boot prints, not ours. 5 or 6 sets. Circled the bunker, then vanished." Helm snorted. "Vanished where? Ground's frozen. You don't vanish in snow." No drag marks, no sprint marks. Just gone. No one replied. Yannick sat beside Dietz, humming a Czech lullaby under his breath. He placed a candle by the soldier's head. The boy hadn't moved in hours. Suddenly a thud, not loud, but specific, above them, then again, like something or someone walking. Helm grabbed his rifle. That's not wind. They followed the sound up through the corridor to the sealed hatch. Ritter placed his ear against the cold steel. Nothing. Then a tap, like fingers drumming, rhythmic, deliberate. They all backed away. "No one opens that," Ritter said. But the question hung, if not us, who's still out there? That night, the candle burned lower than ever. It spat and hissed, curling in on itself. No one touched their rations. No one read. They just sat, waiting. At 22:30, the field telephone rang again. Once, then silence. Helm refused to pick it up. Yannick stepped forward. He lifted the receiver, listened, then turned pale. "Speak," Ritter said. Yannick swallowed. "It was my mother's voice. Yannick, she's been dead since 39. The silence that followed wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, recognition. As if some truth they refused to name had just entered the room. The candle burned on, shrinking by the hour. At midnight, Dietz died. He didn't gasp, didn't twitch. He just stopped. Yannick covered him, then returned to the main chamber. Helm stood now. "We need to leave," he said. "Tomorrow, doesn't matter where, north, south, just away." Ritter didn't disagree, but he didn't agree either. We move at dawn, he said finally, if the snow lets us. Newman exhaled, like a man who'd been holding it for days. The candle trembled. Then the lights went out. Not a pop, not a surge, just black. And all that remained was the flame, flickering, like an eye refusing to close, to be continued. The air stank of wax and breath. At Euro 300, the bunker shook, not violently, just once, a low rumble like a distant avalanche. Then stillness. The candle almost died. Everyone stared. It felt like the earth had sighed beneath them. Newman began muttering, "We're under them. They're standing right above. They're just waiting." By Euro 500, frost crept down the corridor walls like veins. Their last oil lantern flickered once, then failed. The candle was all they had left. Yannick sat with his back against the concrete, clutching Dietz's blanket. Ritter scribbled again. Helm checked the ammunition. 2 rifles, 9 bullets. "We can't wait," Helm said. "We go. North slope, through the gully." Ritter stared at him. "And if we're seen, then we die trying. Better than sitting here like ghosts." Clemens finally spoke. "There's a supply cache, about 2 kilometers north. We buried it in October. Radio gear, dry rations, flares." They had a goal now, but no guarantees. The candle was less than an inch high. At dawn, the hatch opened. Not by them. The bolt, rusted and frozen, gave way with a groan. A silhouette stood in the shaft's mouth. Everyone froze. No one breathed. Then a voice. "Don't shoot. It's me. Pfeiffer." He descended slowly, gaunt, soaked, eyes wide. Pfeiffer had been missing for 12 days, reported dead. Ritter stepped forward. "Where did you come from?" "There's a path. Around the ridge. I found it last week. I tried to come back. I swear." He held up a frostbitten hand. 2 fingers were black. "What did you see?" Helm demanded. Pfeiffer's lips trembled. "They're building something. Not trenches, like posts. Poles with wires. But there's no camp. No guards. Just the sound of digging. Always digging." Clemens looked at Ritter. "We need to go. Now." Ritter nodded. "Pack light. 1 bag each." Pfeiffer collapsed in the corner. Yannick gave him water. He whispered again, voice hoarse. "They don't sleep. I watched them. They don't talk. Just move, like they forgot how to be human." At 0700 they moved. 5 men, 1 candle, 1 compass. Helm led. Yannick stayed back near Pfeiffer. Snow fell. Thin, sharp flakes. The forest was dead silent. Half a kilometer in, they saw it. Footprints, not theirs, in rows, perfectly spaced. "Marching lines," Clemens whispered. But no weight, no drag. Pfeiffer froze. "This is where I lost them." Suddenly, movement. Behind a tree, then gone. They dropped. Guns raised, no sound. "Keep moving," Ritter ordered. But they were already being followed. By Oro 800 they reached the clearing. No cache. Just churned earth. The wooden crate had been dug up, torn open, the radio gone. Only 1 flare remained. "We have to go back," Yannick said. "Regroup. Barricade the hatch." "No," Helm said. "No more hiding." The group splintered. Newman sided with Helm. Yannick and Pfeiffer wanted to return. Ritter stood silent. "Decide," Helm said. "Now." Ritter's eyes moved across the faces, then the horizon. "I go with Helm," he said finally. Yannick's eyes narrowed. "You'll lead them into a grave." "So be it." And just like that, they split. 2 groups. One directionless. Pfeiffer never moved again. When Yannick turned around, the man had collapsed, his breath gone, body still. They left him there, in the snow, beneath the broken sky. The candle was still burning back in the bunker, but no one would see it now. To be continued. By 1100, the forest was no longer silent. It listened. Branches didn't creak. They held breath. Helm, Ritter, and Neumann trudged along the ridge, boots cracking the crust of snow. Helm held the flare. He hadn't spoken in 30 minutes. Ritter's thoughts spun. No map, no signal, no clear objective, only motion. as if moving kept the cold from asking questions. At a ravine's edge, Newman spotted something. Wire, buried shallow in the snow. A trip line. He froze. Ritter followed the line with his eyes. Two more led deeper into the trees. Helm stepped back. Booby-trapped. They're channeling movement. But for what? Ritter whispered. There's no one here. Or they already came, Newman muttered. A distant howl cut the air. Mechanical, not an animal. It repeated, then silence again. What was that? Newman asked. Helm didn't reply. The forest ended suddenly. They emerged onto a slope. The valley beneath was filled with mist. In the center, ruins, stone walls, shattered roof beams, and what looked like a metal pole driven into the earth, crowned by twisted wires. That's where the cache should have been, Ritter said. Or maybe where someone wanted us to go, Helm replied. They descended, cautious, silent. Each step took them closer to something they didn't name. At the center, they saw it. The pole wasn't just steel. It had been part of a radio mast, cut and reassembled in odd angles. Around it, empty crates, bones, uniform scraps. Helm's face tightened. This wasn't a signal station. It was a trap, a rustling. Fast, behind them. Newman spun and fired. Silence returned. Nothing visible. Helm lit the flare. It sputtered, then flamed up, casting orange light through the gray. Shadows twisted. Then, voices from the trees. German, Russian, English. All overlapping. All wrong. As if recordings, slightly warped. Run, Ritter said. But Neumann didn't move. He stepped toward the voices, trembling. It's Anna, he said. She's calling. Ritter grabbed him. There's no one here. But Neumann pulled away, walked into the mist. Helm shouted, then the light went out. Darkness rushed in. Ritter felt cold, like a scream. Helm shoved him. Up the ridge, now! They ran. Branches tore their coats. The mist chased them. Voices louder, then silence, broken by a flare. Helm lit the second one mid-run. The flash threw light forward. Just ahead, the bunker, or what was left. The hatch was gone, blasted open. Ritter dropped to his knees, inside. No light, no candle. Just a hollow echo. They reached it, Helm said. Everyone's gone. A faint breath, Yannick's voice. Not everyone. He crawled from the shadows, bleeding, coughing. They didn't take me. I don't know why. Ritter helped him up. We're leaving, now. But Yannick shook his head. There's no way, they're circling. Helm raised the flare. We make a break, ridge to ridge, south side. What about Neumann? Ritter asked. Helm didn't look back. He chose the voices. As they climbed, the forest changed again. No snow, no footprints, just silence, too deep to be natural. Yannick stopped. Wait. Ritter turned. What? Do you hear breathing? The mist thickened. Ritter turned again. Helm was gone. Only the flare remained, burning in the snow. Yannick knelt beside it. He lit it, so we'd know where to go. Ritter nodded. Then, without speaking, they moved. Fast, south ridge. No plan. Just forward. The flare died behind them. One light gone. Two souls left. No one spoke. But they both knew this wasn't a normal retreat. It was something else. Something no one would believe. They didn't stop moving until the sun fell. Then they waited. Not for rescue, but for morning. If it came, to be continued. The sun never rose fully. A gray disk hovered behind clouds, casting no warmth. Ritter and Yannick emerged from the tree line into a clearing of ash and frost. No birds, no tracks. Just a frostbitten world that felt suspended between time and memory. Yannick collapsed beside a rock, breathing in shallow rasps. Ritter stood still, his uniform torn, his eyes scanning horizons for movement that never came. We made it, Yannick whispered. Ritter didn't answer. He didn't know if they had. There was no map for what came next. They waited. Hours passed. Yannick slept or passed out. Ritter watched over him. He counted the remaining rations. None. Just a canteen with half-frozen water and the stub of a pencil. He found a notebook in his coat, blank. He wrote one sentence. We were here. We saw what wasn't meant to be seen. At dusk, Ritter saw smoke, a thread barely visible in the far southwest. A village? A patrol? He shook Yannick gently. Up, we move. Yannick nodded without speaking. They walked, step by step, each footfall a testament not to strength, but to refusal, to fall, to give in, to vanish. By midnight, they reached the edge of a road, abandoned, tire tracks frozen into the mud, a signpost, Borinia, 12 kilometers, Ukrainian countryside. They were out, not safe, not whole, but out. A Red Cross convoy found them 3 days later. Ritter could barely speak. Yannick had pneumonia. They were processed, questioned, transported to a refugee camp in Krakow. No one believed their story. Ritter tried to explain, but the officers smiled, nodded, and wrote something else. One night in that tented camp, Ritter saw a man across the fence, tall, in uniform, watching, then gone. He never saw Yannick again. They were separated in transit, different sectors, different fates. Ritter returned to civilian life. Poland became shadowed in iron. He lived in a gray apartment, worked in a factory, married briefly. But each night, when the wind howled just right, he remembered the voices, the bunker, the candle. Years later, in 1963, a parcel arrived at his door. No return address. Inside, a flare, half used, and a note. They're still digging. Ritter burned the note, buried the flare, and never told a soul. He died in 1987. No family, no grave inscription. But in the drawer beside his bed, someone found that first sentence again. We were here. We saw what wasn't meant to be seen. Inspired by scattered POW accounts from the winter of 1944 and an anonymous field note archived in Warsaw, uncovered in 1991.